Hey, what is going on, everyone? Hope you all are having a great week. I have an invitation for you. So, as you all know, I devote the bulk of my content toward like the 101 type theory crafting, the hows, the whys, the whens. And some of the comments will read like, hey, we want to see more fishing action sequences. And I totally get that. I enjoy watching action sequences just as much as the next guy. But I can do you one better. With this invitation, what I'm offering to do is to take you from the classroom 101 theory stuff straight to advanced field coursework. But if you find this invitation even remotely interesting, I really need you to understand what this is about. In the past, I've taken new people and taken them out to the open ocean, but I've kept them relatively close, something like 2-3 miles. Okay, this is not that kind of trip. We're not going from the classroom to the shallow end of the pool and putting on our water wings and splashing around. We're going from the classroom right to the deep end of the pool, and we're going to put in big miles and big hours. For you visual learners, what we're going to do is replicate my Catch Me If You Can video from about a year ago. I think that video was probably one of my better ones. We went out, and in one long day, I think we put about 12-13 species on the boat. So if you found that video to be interesting, then read on. Okay, so let's begin with what. What is this? As I mentioned, this is a trip where we go from 101 theory right past the voyeurism straight to advanced field coursework. So essentially, what I'm offering is in one long day, you could pick up a lot of what took me about 2 years to learn. Okay, so this is kind of like a really impacted summer school program. Remember like when you were in junior high and you didn't pay attention in algebra class, so you had to retake it in summer? But now you have to learn in 6 weeks what typically you learn in 20 weeks. So as I mentioned, in that one day, you could pick up things like waypoints. If you have a fish finder, I can take you to all the hot spots, if you will. If you're interested in how the fish finder works, like when I see this formation and I drop down, what am I likely to catch? I could show you techniques, not only in terms of fishing. I'm not really a great fisherman, but I can show you like how and where to position the boat so that you can fight the wind, the swells, as you try to stay on top of a mark. So if these are all topics that interest you, but understandably you're a little bit hesitant about going out on your own, or if you just want to be put on the fast track, this could be your ticket. All right, let's move on to who. Who is this invitation right for? Okay, so this is tricky because I don't think there's one specific resume that's going to ensure success or even a good time. So first of all, let's go over some numbers. As I mentioned, this is going to be physically demanding. We're talking about big miles. All told, we could put in 15 miles. We're talking about big time out on the water. So we could be out on the water for 10 hours, 12 hours. So from a physical exertion standpoint, what makes it tricky is that you could be absolutely new to kayak or kayak fishing, but if you have some kind of an endurance background, like a runner, you're a mountain biker, and you're used to kind of long days, you could do this trip and you could conceivably have a lot of fun. On the flip side, you could be like a really grizzled veteran. Maybe you've been going out on party boats for like 20 years and you have a ton of fishing experience. You could come out and struggle just because of the physical nature of this trip. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's really tricky. But I tell you what, the number one factor, and maybe by a good margin, is how you are wired inside. If you're the kind of person that can remain upbeat and positive when you're tired, when you're hungry, under adverse conditions, you're gonna be in pretty good shape, okay? And you need to be cool under pressure. We may go out there and in 10-12 hours, not everything's gonna be hunky-dory. Winds will pick up, swells could pick up. So there's a lot of that. So you have to be wired in a certain way. Okay, so if you're still with me, let's move on to the when. So first of all, I'm super conflicted here because of the whole COVID-19 situation, and I'm trying to walk a very fine line between safety and having fun. And so I need to make this a weekday trip just to lessen the broad appeal. And on top of that, if we're going to be exposed to the virus, it's going to be at the dock. And if we do this on a weekend, it's just going to be way too crowded. So I guess what I'm saying is ultimately you're an adult and I expect you to be able to make adult decisions in terms of safety and fun. And you have to walk that tightrope too. So it's going to be a weekday, most likely a Friday. In terms of catching fish, we want to put the odds in our favor because I want to show you a good time, right? So in terms of science, what we're going to do is rely on tidesforfishing.com. And we're going to pick a day where it's going to be a full moon or a no moon. And the reason we pick a full moon or a no moon is because during those types of moon phases, tidal movement and the water movement are going to be greater. And everything else being equal, the more water movement, the more fish activity. Moving on to gear. Hey, I know that we're not all made out of money. I know I'm not. And you all know that I am all about inclusion and not exclusion. So I'm going to describe a one rod, one reel setup that can hopefully cover most of what we're going to do. Beginning with a rod, I would recommend a length somewhere between 7 foot and 8 foot. Beyond that, there is a dizzying array of applications. Some rods were meant to cast with, some rods were meant for vertical jigging. But if you look for a line rating, something like 15 to 30 pound, that should get you in the ballpark. With the reel, I happen to think that a low profile bait casting reel, the 300 size, is probably the best all around configuration, but that may be my personal opinion. In terms of line recommendation, that's more of a no-brainer. You should use braid. So for your main line, it should be about 50-pound braid, and then at the end, you should have like maybe a 6-foot section of leader, whether it be like monofilament or fluorocarbon, and that should be like something in the 20 to 30 pound range. The connection knot that I use to connect the braid to the leader is called the modified Albright knot, but I should tell you that's not the best in terms of absolute thinness of profile or strength. I think the FG knot is kind of considered to be the best, but I like the modified Albright knot because for me it's the easiest to tie when I'm out on the open water. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to tie that knot, but if you look up modified Albright knot on YouTube, there are many tutorials. Okay, moving on to terminal tackle. If you are a lure fisherman, I would probably bring erratic fall jigs ranging from maybe 1 ounce all the way to 8 ounces. We're going to be fishing water anywhere from 30 foot all the way to 250. And let me interject here. All this stuff is super expensive, right? Especially if you buy it one by one. So if you need gear, reach out to me. I can get you the stuff at my cost. If you are looking to put as many fish on the boat as possible, you should probably go with a bait rig. Okay, so double dropper loop using the universal bait, which is squid, and depending on the water depth, the formula I like to use is 1 ounce of torpedo sinker for roughly 20 feet of water. So if you're in, let's say, 60 feet of water, you should have maybe about a 3 ounce torpedo sinker, and so on and so forth. In terms of hook size, depends, right? If you want to target everything from really small fish like perch all the way to like big rockfish, go from a size 6 hook, which is kind of like the kind of hook you use for trout, all the way to a 5/0 size hook. So to summarize, you want a handful of torpedo sinkers, everything from 3 ounce to 5 ounce to 8 ounce to 12 ounce, and then again hooks, anything from 6 to 5/0. And so what I would do is do all of my rigging on dry land before the trip, and then wrap all your rigs around one of those cheap pool noodles. If you want to try and hit home runs, and by that I mean big fish like, let's say, halibut, lingcod, white sea bass, yellowtail, you're probably going to have to catch bait, live bait. And so this is where having those small size 6 hooks or whatever come into play. And of course, you're going to need some kind of live bait well. I would strongly recommend against using one of these like Swivel, bait buckets. They create a ton of drag and they'll rob at least a half a mile from your cruising speed. There are tons of videos on YouTube on how to make DIY live bait wells using PVC pipe. In addition, for the live bait setups, I would recommend a rig that involves a second hook. Some people will call it a stinger hook, some people call them trap rigs, but I'm going to put a picture here. If you are new to the game and all these terminal tackle recommendations and rigs are overwhelming, I'm going to try and describe one rig that can do a bunch of things. I don't know if this rig has a name, I'll just call it the Honey Badger Voodoo Special. Now, this rig initially, especially if you're new, is going to seem complicated. But once you learn how to do this, it'll make things easier and it'll simplify once you're out on the water. So here's how it goes. So this is your rod and reel here. And then your main line is about 50-pound braid. And then you have a connection knot here. Okay, I use the modified Albright. Then you have about a 6-foot section of either mono or fluorocarbon leader. And on this leader section, you have a sliding swivel. So this swivel is free to slide up and down the leader line. And to this swivel, you can attach any torpedo sinker you want. If you're in shallow water, you can attach a 3-ounce. If you're in really deep water, you can attach a 12-ounce. If you want no weight at all, you can choose not to attach any kind of sinker. Right here in purple, you have about a 150-pound rated barrel swivel. Now don't go too light. I mean, in terms of braking strength, you don't necessarily need 150 pounds. But choosing one that's 150 pounds or 200 pounds gives you bigger eyes and it makes them easier to work with. Essentially, the role of the barrel swivel is to prevent or minimize line twist. Finally, what's connected to the barrel swivel is what people call a power clip. They have different names and different brands, but essentially it looks like a little paper clip. And this power clip allows you to quickly, efficiently and securely switch out rigs. So if you are a lure or jig fisherman, you attach your jig to the end of this power clip and you have no torpedo sinker here. If the jig or the lure is not working for you, simply unsnap it and then attach a bait rig. Okay, so this is again about 25-pound fluoro or mono line. And then this is another 150-pound barrel swivel. And you can choose to run 1 hook or 2 hooks. If you are in shallow water, connect maybe a 3-ounce torpedo sinker to the sliding swivel. If you're in deep water, then connect maybe 8, 10, or 12-ounce torpedo sinker to your sliding swivel. So again, at home, pre-make a bunch of these bait rigs and wrap it around a pool noodle. So you have a bait rig for smaller fish. These are smaller hooks, size 6. And then you might have a few that are targeting bigger fish like 3/0 or 5/0 hooks. So there you have it. It's a very modular system. Now I'm not saying that it's the best rig for every possible scenario, but if you only want to deal with one rig to try and target a bunch of species, it's the best rig that I can think of. Okay, that about wraps it up in terms of classroom work. Hey, if you feel like this trip is something that you want to do, go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you are part of the Honey Badger culinary team, drop a comment down below with something resembling a wish list and we'll try to get a fish relay going. With that, we will bring this video to an end. Regardless of whether or not I see you, keep getting out there, but be safe and we will see you soon on our next adventure. Bye for now.